100%. All right, it's actually after 6:30. It is 6:33, so we will call the meeting to order. I'll have Dr. Hanson or Michelle take our roll call. And we begin, I would just need a motion to accept the one employee resignation that was vetted.
So moved.
Motion by Teresa, do I have a second? Second by Spencer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And there were no hires, I don't think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have any contract hires, so then we'll move right into a review of the levy and mill rate information presented by Debbie Burnett from the Baird Public Finance.
Many of you have heard Debbie speak already. Our district's worked very closely with her for the last lots of years, way before me. So she's just going to be sharing some information about things that we talked about last week. Good evening. I think that 17 years, the number of years that I've been working with and helping the district in some capacity, so it's exciting to be back with you tonight. So I'm here tonight to talk through and provide some visuals around the concept that I believe you talked about last meeting, where you were looking at scenarios to address some shorter term incidents while looking longer term incidents. So I wanted to start tonight by looking at our levy mill rate numbers, because as we look tonight at some of the concepts, we'll be talking a little bit about mill rate. So in doing that, I thought it best to start with 25-26 as actually approved by the school board in October. So our mill rate is calculated by taking our school levy, dividing it by our property value within the district, multiplying it by 1,000 to get to the impact per thousand of property value. If we look at this year's numbers specifically, this year the district levied a little over $14 million for the school portion of the levy. Now notable is 2 years ago, the district levied $14.3 million, I believe, $14.32 million. So the levy this year is actually lower than it was 2 years ago. This levy is divided over the property value within the district. The district has about $2.6 billion worth of property value that levy is getting spread out over this year. When we multiply that by 1,000 as part of the formula, we get to an impact of $5.40 per thousand. So if someone asked you what the mill rate was for the district this year, $5.40 would be that number we would reference. How we transition that to individual property value, if you had a $100,000 property, that would estimate to $540 for that $100,000 property. So we know that there are many properties valued at $100,000 today. You can double this, triple it, quadruple it, etc., to get to property value more closely aligned to your own. So this $5.40, keep this in mind because you'll see this on the next slide. Just another note, state average this year was $7.09. So you still continue to be well below state average as approved this year. $7.09, which for K-12 district to be specifically, your K-12 district. And last year the state average was $7.09 for K-12 school districts as well. It did not change. Yours decreased from 551 down to 540, so 11 cents, where the state average stayed the same. So Michelle and I put together this hypothetical scenario to get the board thinking and talking more about the concept discussed last week. What you'll see here in the light gray, or the gray color, is the actual for 24-25 and 25-26, and you see the 551 and the 540 that I just referenced for the actual mill rates as calculated by what was actually approved in those years. What we've done is casted it forward, in this case 3 years, in order to demonstrate the concept discussed last month. 26-27, next year is the last year of your current operational referendum. And in 27, 28, you can see that gray bar drop as that referendum is currently approved would fall off and no other approval. What we've done with the black bar that's layered in is assumed that that 2.5 million continued. And the ask was, as Michelle and I started talking, was if we had operational needs and then also wanted to address some maintenance needs, what might that look like on a mill rate estimate? And that's what you see then in those blue gradients. So representing a $3.5 million operational, which would be another million for maintenance. So 2.5 for operations, a million for maintenance. 3.5 gradient up to $7.5 million operational, which would be 2.5 for operations in this example, and then 5 million for maintenance. What we did in addition to that is try to put approximate mill rate impacts to that, knowing that in year one, the mill rate impact would be higher than in year two, because the state shares in the expenses, but it lags a year. So the first year, the onus would be on the taxpayer, and then the second, in the year after, the state would share in some of it, and so the impacts project to go down. So in this, I'll talk through these. So I mentioned the $3.5 million operational, which would be $2.5 million continued operations plus $1 million for facility, would be approximately a 35-cent impact in that first year, and then would lower in year two. So again, transitioning that to a $100,000 property, $35 more for that $100,000 property. And if we use 540 as an example, we calculate that to 575. That's how those can be added on, knowing that next year will adjust. We've increased that by $1 million increments up to that $5 million extra for facilities, which is estimates today in the model approximately $1.75 in that first year. Again, the second year, the impact we would anticipate it to decrease because that state would start and kick in.
Debbie, because it's a little hard to see for everybody, can you just go through which each one would be, what 2 million would be, or are you able to?
Yes, so this dark blue represents a $3.5 million ask. I'll start there again. So 2.5 continued plus $1 million, and that estimates to 35 cents on the mill rate in the first year. So $35 for a $100,000 property. The second blue gets us to 4.5 million for the operations, which would be 2.5 plus 2 million more, and that estimates to approximately 70 cents in year one. The 5.5 million is this third bar here, and estimates, it provides 3 million per year for facility projects, and estimates an additional $1.05 on the mill rate for the impact. A 6.5 million is this light blue shaded, even lighter. They all fit together, which is why I chose the same shade of blue. That would provide $4 million a year for facility projects. Estimates at approximately $1.40 for that first year impact on the mill rate. So again, if we use this year's mill rate, 540 plus $1.40, that would be 680 for the estimate, knowing that next year will still fluctuate as the impact over. And then finally, 7.5 million for operations, which would be the dark blue plus all these blue, which provides an estimate of 5 million for facility at $1.75 in that first year. It is harder to see the light blue as it comes down, but I'll trace it with the mouse. So here we have the top of year one impacts at that 7.5 operational. This is the top of year two. And again, that reason in the drop is the state in the second year shares in those expenses. And then, just notably, you'll notice these darker bars are smaller in size compared to these larger ones. That's because of your favorable position in the state formula, that these initial costs estimated right now is at 60% reimbursement, whereas once you exhaust that bucket, it's at 30%. So it's still 60% or 30%, just in the earlier options, more falls at that 60% level. And then this would continue as approved, meaning if the board considered 4-year or a 5-year, it would step out. I have a 4-year example for you on the next slide. Am I explaining this concept okay? And do you have any questions on this before I transition to more of a hypothetical longer range look?
Debbie did present to the facilities that me and Spencer and Heidi were all a part of just the last hour. So we did ask some questions on ours, so make sure if you guys have questions on your own to ask Debbie.
Yeah, my biggest issue is I cannot see it. And so it's just easier to have it on a screen in front of me versus seeing it up there. And to be able to follow you as you're following the bouncy ball around that screen. So if you could be a little bit more specific with that.
Later, right? We get your copy after.
Okay, Michelle does have to share out. I was smiling at the bouncy ball. I was trying to move so smooth, but no matter how you move it, it still looks bouncy, doesn't it? So transitioning into a forward-looking concept, we wanted to give you the idea of how this could look long-term, and knowing that the goal is short-term maintenance needs, long-term, larger facility. And so what we've modeled out here is we've taken off the first 2 actual years, and we've started with the projected year of 26, 27, just like we had on the last slide. Instead of ending at 28, 29, we've done a hypothetical 4-year scenario. And really what this demonstrates is that after the first year, like we talked about, where the state isn't sharing in the new expenses, as we come into the next year, and they are, that pattern is expected to continue for the term of the operational ask. And we've assumed 4 years in this scenario. It doesn't have to be 4 years, we're using that for demonstration. But what this models out or shows is that if at the end of that operational ask, and in this scenario 4 years, you turn that off, meaning you still kept the 2.5 million for operations, but you traded that operational ask, you could turn that off and turn on and ask for something different, a debt-related question, for instance, to address your larger facility needs. And we did model out some scenarios for you, wanting you to have that information in your back pocket. So
Let me see if I'm following you. So after 4 years, all of that debt comes off, and then we're back at the original referendum where those dark brown lines are.
in
Correct?
this scenario, it's all part of one operational ask. So instead of asking for 2.5 million, you would ask for 4 million or 5 million or 5.5. So yes, at the end of that 4 years, in this scenario, it all falls off, but the board, in this case, chooses to keep the 2.5 for operations.
Okay.
And whatever was extra for the maintenance work, that could be reallocated to something else. Maybe it's reallocating it to maintenance, maybe it's reallocating it to a larger facility else. But that's the capacity where you can turn one off and turn
And
something
so
back
in-
on.
So in theory, it could go back, in theory, because it's not going to, but in theory, it could go back to a 5.40 levy.
Correct, the board could choose to just ask for 2.5 million, let's say, and not do any more maintenance. That would be up to the board.
And that levy number would be different at that time because of inflation and equalization and all of that, so.
Yeah, this would continue to forecast out.
That's why I
in
said in
concept,
theory.
yeah. The further we go out, the more we know.
Too many variables.
Yes.
So when it falls off on year 4, starting year 5, if we wanted to, would that require another referendum to make that, whatever it is that we wanted to do, 7 or make it 3, okay. Gotcha. Or capital, give it a capital, okay.
Now, can you overlap those with capital?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. With a subsequent referendum ask.
Okay.
Yes. And interestingly enough, I apologize for not mentioning this in committee, but I was looking back in my notes and back in, it was either 16 or 17 when you started your operational effort at Central, you had debt levy and energy efficiency levy at about 1.5 million, and that stepped down in the year that your operational assets stepped up. So you deployed a strategy similar to this, just in the inverse way about 10 years ago to help your operational step in. So. Right.
So I think, tonight was basically getting information from Debbie, so a future meeting coming up real soon, we'll probably discuss our thoughts on this. But tonight was pretty much information gathering from her. So, while she's here, last chance for questions for her tonight.
The last screen.
Everyone understands it? Yep.
Yes.
That's your representation, right? Yep.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Yep. Michelle, can you get a copy? She can read it.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
All good?
My goal was to prove out the concept you started talking about last
Correct.
meeting with
Correct.
actual numbers and something
Absolutely.
to help show.
And I know Heidi was very appreciative, yeah.
I love you. Thank you.
You did everything.
As we all were.
Exactly what we asked for, so thank you so much, this helps.
Will these numbers that you gave us, like the 70 cents for year 1 and the $1.05, will that change if our mill rate changes?
So yes, so good question. This is based on an estimated 26, 27 up.
Right.
So as you continue to solidify 26, 27, that allows those numbers to further solidify.
So if our mill rate would happen to go up in year 3, then these numbers are gonna be added on to an okay. Right. I got it, I think.
Most of the adjustments we would be looking at in 26, 27.
Right away the first year.
And then, so next year creates your, what we would say is an impact over mill rate, so.
And I think the question is like, basically the big gray, like the
Yeah.
mill rate the mill rate that's based on the tax equalizations and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. If that would drastically, or at all change, those numbers obviously would have
Those
a
numbers
buffer
are gonna
with it.
change too.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, good clarification.
But the plus 35 and plus 70, that stuff could stay approximately the same.
So the
Right.
color
Just,
stuff, right?
yeah.
Yes,
Good question, that was good.
yes. Something happened at the state level unforeseen that caused the volume to go
Something to change there.
wonky, very technical term, I know. We of course have to adjust all for that.
Great, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have review and discussion of Schedule B.
Mr. Peters here tonight. I want to thank Michelle and Brad for putting some information together. Our Schedule Bs are those activities and including coaching, etc. All the things that our students take part in, our advisors and coaches, our compensation schedule. So Mr. Peters, thank you so much. Michelle, thank you very much. Katie and others brought this up at our last meeting.
Yeah, so this is a continuation of what we talked about last month. When we had some questions about certain positions and things like that in regards to coaches and stuff. So I had a discussion with Mr. Kluger, and he put together a lot of great info for us tonight.
So I think originally Teresa had asked, like, what's the difference between, like, some of our head high school sporting events, coaches, and then for our music events too. So that's where we started. So I kind up so you can, do you also have to kind of do the sweep? Okay, so they can see it a little bit more. Do you want it? Okay.
If you don't have the document, and then she can make it smaller. So athletics, which are part of our A bracket, which are all athletics, are tiered of season lengths and community pressure. If that's what you want to talk about, of why their stipend is what it is as we went down. So that's the first thing that it goes on. And then if you get down here a little bit, you're going to see show choir, marching band, drama director, which is our play, and our musical director as well. So when we did this 2 years ago, we looked at what all the MBC, all right, schools did, and they continually tier it like this as well. But I also broke it down in weeks of the season and days approximately of when they meet with their athletes or their people or their groups of what they had. And then if you looked over on this side of it, and you can make it smaller, it just breaks it down what that would be per week and per day towards each tier, if you want to say as. So if you could compare, all of the MBC schools, except for one, have a tiered approach. Again, length of season and community pressure of why they are paid differently at these levels. So that's the first thing that I think, Michelle, at the last meeting that you guys were looking for, just to kind of see. Now, I want you to realize that our coaches and our directors put in way more hours than this. I mean, these are just days and weeks that they're going. So that's why, if you look at it, to see where it's at. Our marching band, I just, again, a note, yes, they're this many weeks, but yes, it is a class. And our musical, wanted to get it 2 weeks longer so they can make it better, so they have extended their season as well. So those are the couple notes from there. So, and 2 years ago, again, we took all the data. I have another document. I don't know if Michelle has it, but then you can see it.
Which is even smaller.
It's even smaller. And I can share it with you.
He's gonna explain it. As we
Yeah, I'll share it with you. So again, just looking at most of the schools, I was able to get this year's numbers of what it was, except for on Alaska at this time, he was out and about. So you can see of most of the time, if I'm the head baseball coach, all right, there's a formula of base salary, whatever you get paid as a teacher, times, all right, 0.09, and that gets you what you are for a head baseball coach. Okay, and then assistant 0.06 times the base salary. So that is probably the most common thing when we looked at it 2 years ago of what every school district was doing. And then so they were able to set it.
What if you're not staff?
Excuse me?
What if you're not staff?
So this is the number. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
So don't think about you get this. This is the number that they go off to figure it out. So it's 4,000. I think it's 42.74. It wouldn't matter if you were a teacher or not. But this is the formula that they go by. Hope I'm making sense there.
No.
no, I just meant, so if you're not a math, go ahead.
Yeah, just that 47,000 is like with a first year teacher.
Right.
So that's you're going off. So you're going off of the average first year. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that's how they all are making it so they can understand it.
So are you going off of the average of all the teaching staff and taking the average teacher, or is
First
it
year.
just
This
based
is what
on
a
the
first year
first-year
teacher makes in every single school district that they have for this year.
Base salary.
I got you now.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
So that's how they get their formula of how much to pay each position where they're at. At basketball at Sparta, their base salary this year is 47.4 and they 0.13. Again, the season length and the pressure of it, they make 6,174. So we took all of these and we looked at them all 2 years ago, all right, to get to ours. So this, I think we're in L. And that's how we come about of what most of the schools were using for their formula. Obviously, our base wage is different than theirs. Every school district is different, but we wanted to see how close that we could get for that percentage of that. And that's how we came up with this. This far one is, I think, the most important for us to look at as a Board of Education in this. I know I have the other document, but this is, if you scroll up, I just want to make sure I say it right. All right, so the number indicates how much TSD is lower or higher than the average pay, not the highest, the average pay of the Mississippi Valley Conference. If it is in red, it means we pay more than the average. Okay, so red means that we're paying more. Black is that we're paying less than the average, not the highest. So I want you to be aware of that. So as you can see up and down of how we're compared to the rest of the conferences, I wondered, obviously, when we talked about 2 years ago, obviously I didn't think we needed to be the top, but I didn't want to be the lowest as well. So that's how it went on. As we scroll down, I think one of your questions was regarding athletics and compared to activities of how that base is. Unfortunately, that I had a few pointers of looking at. I think it's marching band and the assistant, the musical directors and the musical assistants were ones that were in red that I saw that there was a big variance that we weren't paying enough. Now you have to realize that marching band is different in almost every single school of how it is run. I just want you to be aware of that. Like this school pays almost, he tried to break it down for me, but this school, I don't know what it is, but pays like $7,900. But that's marching band, pep band, orchestra band, like it's all together. You have to do it all. And they didn't have it breaking down. So he tried to get me about what marching band was. So that's why I want you to understand it's not just a cookie cutter. Each school district is the exact same for these positions. So.
And like the amount of parades and when they practice and if it's a class at the high school or not, that's all varies also?
Also varies, yes, absolutely. I would say it is very common that they are mostly classes, but parade-wise and what they're going to on the weekends and summer camps are going to vary a lot throughout the school districts.
So the new ones that were brought to us last month, girls wrestling, assistant, I believe, things like that, basically you used
I used
whole document.
Title IX,
yeah.
whatever the boys was making for girls and boys wrestling, because it was, the assistant is brand new this year.
Correct.
We have 16 girls out compared to 7, and now we just have a lot more kids, and for safety, I just felt it was necessary. I mean, we're only probably 11 kids behind the boy rate, like, and they have an assistant for varsity, so why shouldn't the girls? And we can continue, hopefully that number increases.
And I guess even my point was more, it wasn't like you just picked a number out of the hat. I mean, you obviously have all these formulas and comparisons and things like that all fall into this whole big document.
Yep.
So explain those red boxes to me again. I can't even see what's in them, but.
So red is really highlighted that we are lower, a lot lower than the average in the Mississippi Valley Conference.
So we're still very, very low.
On those few, yes. Yep.
Changing it so you can see.
Okay.
Do we have an orchestra?
No.
Just band?
So orchestra would probably be more like pit band for the musical, like that was what they call orchestra at times, yes. Some schools use
For
it.
that school district?
For that school district, yes, that's
Or
what
they
he said.
may have an orchestra.
I'm not saying they don't, but yes, that's how he explained it.
So our fine arts people are being paid less than the sports people, am I correct?
On this tiered, yes, correct. I'm not saying that they're less valued or they're one's less than the other, but currently, yes, they are.
So can I?
And then you can go back to the other one and you can compare the weeks and everything with it as well.
I think your question, I need to answer that. Okay, that's good. So pressure, you say pressure is one of the factors that factors into that equation. Can you define pressure? I mean, I'm guessing like football is like a huge thing. Like, how do you guys determine what gets more pressure? I guess.
Good question. It's a great question. I guess I could say it wasn't me, wasn't you. It's probably just been how society has ran over the years of, football playing in front of 800 to 1,000 people on a Friday night and people just wanting to know. I'm not saying one is less important than the other compared to the tennis coach who's doing a great job and is very important, valuable, might just have less that way wise. That's where the pressure comes from.
Is soccer included in that one?
Soccer's in here, yeah.
I think a little bit of trade-off too is some of the bigger sports also bring in more ticket sales, more concessions, more, you know, things like that.
And I'm not trying to like
No, I know,
question
I know.
anything,
And
I just
I don't believe you
wanna
are either.
understand everything
Yeah.
from.
100%.
So you, since you brought up ticket sales, are the ticket sales for your football more than your musical?
Yeah, obviously we have more home games, like, I couldn't get the exact breakdown, but I could get it, because now with GoFan, our musicals are now going to use that, so it's easier to track.
Okay.
As we're doing online ticketing, easier to track that way. Otherwise, we'd have to go through.
Because it seems like they're putting in, well, I don't know, I can't compare the music to football, because I can see that there is a difference in hours that they're putting in.
I'm not telling you there is, I'm not telling you that at all, just so you know. I think our show choir and our directors put in a ton
Well,
of hours
being a
out of
music
that
person,
as
being a
well.
music person and having to be in their position, because I've been there. I know how many hours and 16-hour days that they're putting in.
Ooh.
And so I'm wondering why we're lower on there, you know.
Actually, our show choir, because of when we really looked at it, we were beyond low. Our show choir now is right below here a little bit. That is not one of the ones that was in that it's our band, and I would have to do more to make sure that the $5,900 that this school district's paying and the 70, like, I'd have to really dive deep into make sure that they are, is it a class, is it not a class? How many times are you meeting? I could use my other document that I made, like, hey, we're meeting this many days. How many are you meeting, to see if we're actually that much lower with our band being $1,800 lower than the median or the average of the MBCs.
I hate to do it to you, but I really would like to know those answers.
Okay.
So the gold ones up there, did you say?
The
Yeah.
gold ones.
Yeah, I really would like to know the fine arts, that I would like to.
But it's our band, it's our musical director, it's our musical assistants,
Right,
and it's our middle school band. I believe those were the four. Our show choir, we're really spot on still, and very
Okay.
similar to athletics up here as well.
And so you asked for that.
I wanna know, because there's such a dichotomy in there's a difference
spot.
in the gold areas, which is the band director. I want to know, compared to every other school, and what he has to do is dig deeper.
The responsibilities
Is it
of the
being
band
picked up
directors at
somewhere
each school,
else
is
in
it the
the
same as
salary?
ours? Is it truly, if they're all the same,
That's
then
right.
we're $1,800.
Totally get it.
Apples to apples.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Yeah, that's
And
fine.
so if it's right now apples to apples, then fine, so be it. But if it isn't, then we need to address, is what I'm getting at.
Those are easy. Those 5 things are, I'll look it up.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
annually, this is something you look at and bring us in screen? Like you feel like bumps
So what-
should be made?
When we passed it as a board, I
Okay.
believe that we were not going to, so some school districts, so obviously your base wage moves up every single year. So that means we're gonna be paying our coaches more every single year because your base wage. And I was gonna come back again next year or whatever in the spring to see if we were going to be bumping to that or staying the same every single year. You guys asked me to come and ask that question, whether we had it in the budget or whether we didn't that year. It was because it was 7 years before the last time we allowed these people to get more money, and we wanted to make sure that we at least brought it up yearly, and whether we advanced them or not would be on your board.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It was quite a bit of time. Thank you for that. And, it was something we had question time last month, and thank you for timely getting it back to us. And,
That was
so-
fun.
December work for you in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Kluger. All right, next would be a review of the Tomah Area School District State Report Card data.
I want to thank Mrs. Kluber for putting this together and all the work she's doing along these lines and all the work behind everything that our faculty are doing.
You're giving something to the blind.
That's
That's awesome.
As we
Thank you so much. Oh,
continue to make improvements on our report card data.
This
I
is.
have it.
Is this what's, this what's,
I'm not sure.
okay.
No,
Thank you.
it's a presentation.
There's some growth.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to help you understand what you're looking at, as well as what our scores were, because it is a complicated thing in your report cards. So we're gonna start with remembering that report cards are unique, and in a minute, I'm gonna kind of show you, some calculations that it's hard to compare districts to each other, it's hard to compare schools to each other because the percentage change based on different categories, and we're gonna go through that in a minute. The other thing you need to remember is that report cards are backward-facing tools, which means they're lagging data. So the data that we're looking at actually was from last year, right? And so it is one snapshot, it's a measure that we look at, but there are lots of other things that we look at too to see how we're doing. And then along with this snapshot, we use data from like our diagnostic testing that's 3 times a year. So we're looking at all different kinds of components to see like, are we growing, are we not? This year, you're gonna see that report cards had some changes in it. When you look at the overall front page of report card, you're gonna see that it has an overall score and a rating, it has school information, student demographic data, there's a statement from the school up at the top, and then there are 4 priority areas, which are achievement, growth, target growth outcomes, and on track to graduation. And then there are some other information that is included later on as and I'll make you like turn pages and things, but course and program data are included in this. There's a new 3rd grade reading percentage that's included, and then there's a new portion that is certain state and local law violations. So that kind of is what encompasses the report card in total. So when we look at report card scoring, and we're gonna get into that in a minute. So if you just stay with me for a little bit, because I need to make sure that you're understanding what you're looking at. Because just looking at the charts without understanding it won't help. So when we look at this, you'll notice the 4 priority areas, right? And then to the bottom, you're going to see that little piece that's circled, which talks about the economically disadvantaged. Do you see that portion? So that portion is what drives different percentages and scores, and why at the beginning I said it's really hard to compare schools and districts to each other because of that number, it's going to change a calculation. So I'm going to try to see if I can get this. I think I have to escape out here for a second. If we look, this calculator helps determine how you weight that report card. So for example, our district report card gets a 45.3%. So we're gonna take this little slider and we're gonna slide it over to 45.3%. And then what it does is down below, you'll see that the different areas are weighted differently. So our achievement score is worth 18.1% of our total score. Our growth score is 31.9% of our total score. And then we have the target group outcomes, which is where your gaps are, and then you're on track to graduation. So that makes up like your piece of the pie. Not all schools have the same calculation. So for example, like when we compare, we'll take an individual school. So Lemon Wire, theirs is 67.5. So if I move this slider to 67.5, right there. You'll notice that their growth scores were 45% of their pie, and their achievement scores were 5. Does that make sense? So when I say it's hard to compare schools, you have to understand it. So then we're gonna take Lagrange, and I'm gonna show you the difference between like Lagrange and the Lemon Wire. Just have to get there. Here, so so LaGrange's is 47.5. So when I take this and I slide it down here to 47.5. We're close. Theirs is 33.4 versus 16. So when I say it's hard to compare two different schools, you just have to know that the pie changes based on your socially economic status, right? So we're gonna jump back to this. I just wanted that to be really clear before we. So for our district,
Ms. Booger.
yeah,
Why is that going on in this state? Why isn't it, why aren't we going for, I understand that students need to have a certain amount of growth. Why are you adding that economic, why, I know it's not you, it's the state.
It's definitely not me.
Let me just go with, it's the state.
Yep.
Why is the state adding this economic disadvantage to that formula it seems like it skews, because if LaGrange is doing, their achievements over here, or excuse me, Lemon Wire, their achievements just this little bit, and they have all this growth, and then LaGrange has the opposite almost. Why are you adding that component? I thought we were trying to focus on student growth and student achievement and getting them to achieve to the standard or way above the standard actually, because the standard's really low. So why are,
so you
it
also have
seems
to,
like there's a gap there, and
but you have to understand that like you can't just say it's all equal, because like if we took a Heartland Arrowhead and compared it to us, it's apples, like you were talking before, apples to oranges, right? So the calculation that they have is meant to make it equitable across the board, so that when you look at that they're giving different schools different weights based on their socioeconomic status. So a Heartland Arrowhead's socioeconomic percentage is going to be very, very low. And what typically is happening, again, I'm stereotyping, but this is where it came from. Typically, students that have access to tutors and all these things are achieving at higher levels. And so if you put it on a level playing field, they're gonna knock us out of the park like no other. But growth, if you have a student that's underperforming, it is easier to get them to grow, which then leads to achievement versus the other. So they weight it differently to make it more equitable, so that the Heartland Arrowheads and the Tomahs can compete against one another. Does that make sense?
So can I give you the DPI answer? Because I looked this up because I thought it was complete bullcrap too. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna tell it how it is. I think that the whole system is just dumb. Like whatever happened to A, B, C, D, F, and whatever.
thank you.
So it says student group level reporting, performance data broken down by student group, including race, ethnicity, and service provision, economically disadvantaged English learners, and or students with disabilities, contained in supplementary pages of the report cards. This disaggregation allows educators to assess the impact of student outcomes on overall performance and identify groups of students who are in need of support or are demonstrating progress.
That's a bunch of hullabaloo.
So I just wanted you to know it's hard to compare, right?
It's not your fault.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I think
Yeah, so we just have, this is how we get our report card scores, right? And so I just, again, as we start to look at different schools and they start to show you different numbers, I just want you to realize that because of their pie charts, it's hard to compare apples to apples, right? That's really the point that I'm trying to make.
Sorry.
So
you
for
had
us,
to
so for us, we have 45.3% in our district. That's our socioeconomic disadvantage number that we got. So when you put it into the slider, our achievement is 18.1% for the district report card. Our growth is weighted at 31.9%. Our target group outcomes are that 25%, and our on track to graduation is 25% as a district. When you look at individual school report cards, you'll see that some of them don't have target group outcomes. They don't have a score at all, like even our elementary schools. That's because that target group is breaking down the bottom quartile, that 25th percent. And because we have some really, really small schools, you'd be able to identify who those students are, so they don't get a score because they don't want you to be like, oh, that's that one kid in that school, right? And so your larger schools will have a target group outcome score, but your smaller schools, that the population is just where you're not gonna be able to, right? You don't want to single people out and identify people, that's why they don't have that score, okay? So that's really how we get like our report card scoring. So then some new things before we dive into our own report card is there have been updates to the achievement-based scoring. The test participation flags are on the front page. We don't have any of those, and I'll get into that in a second. There's a new statutory required where we have to, they have to show us what our third grade reading proficiency was. This is not against or for us. It's not scored as part of the report card. It's just information that's in there. And then another component that is not scored is there's a new updated category with the score ranges, and we're gonna get into that in 2 seconds. So last year, if you look at the 23-24 score range, that's how their accountability ratings, the words changed last year. So the different stars and the scores in the middle there, that was the scoring last year. So you'll notice that there was an increase to those scores. So for example, to meet expectations, last year, if you scored a 58 to 69.9, you met expectations. This year, you have to score a 60 to 70.9 to meet expectations. So again, I'm just throwing caution when you compare last year's scores to this year's scores, it's a different scale. And so you have to just know that, and there's certain things that you can and cannot compare because the report card changed again.
Okay.
It's like a moving target. It's super fun.
So are those numbers, I know, education is a moving target, but are those numbers 83 to 100, is it like 83%? Is that what
those four components and the scores
percentages?
You get in those the four areas, and then they put them together based on the percentages, right? Like growth is worth 31%, so the score from there is worth 31% of your new score refresh.
So how I'm reading that 60 to 70, I'm assuming that's 60 to 70. If I can read it plus 2 that meets expectations. Is that 60% to 70%?
No.
No.
It's the four components.
Okay, but those four components are in a percentage.
Right, and that's what I showed you, like by the
Yeah.
socioeconomic, it tells you what the percentage is, so based on that percentage, when you add everything in there, it calculates it, so that growth for our district gets us 31.9% of our pie. That's how it gets our number. So other districts, be based on their socioeconomic percentage, their growth or achievement might look different than ours. So everybody's pie is worth 100, but everybody's percentages of the pie is based on these numbers. Clear as mud.
Convoluted system.
So the scoring changed. That's again the point that I'm trying to make. Some of the other things is typically a report card uses 3 years of data. Last year when I came and presented to you, the forward, the exam that our 3rd through 8th graders took, changed. And so last year there was only 1 year of data. So there's charts that we're gonna go through in a minute, and there was only 1 graph. This year, it's the 2nd year now that we've given that test. And so now this year there are 2 years of data that are calculated in order to get those scores. So next year, we'll go back to that 3-year calculation, right? So the 3-year will approach next year. And then last year, there was, I had come and talked to you about basically like if you had gone backwards, they didn't lower your score, they kept you the same. This year, they took that out. So that is discontinued this year. So all scores, because there's stuff to compare it to, there's 2 percentages. So now we actually have like data to look at that scoring is based off of 2 years instead of 1. The other thing that changed is we used to align to achievement. It used to be like, again, their mathematical equation was based on achievement, and now it's based on growth across the board statewide. So that priority area is scored differently, which growth and target group outcomes have typically been normed to achievement, but the new scores are normed to growth, and it was the way that DPI described it to us was to, again, build that equity factor, they were finding that growth was the most consistent out of, when you looked at it statewide, and achievement fluctuated too much. So schools like your Heartland Arrowheads were having higher scores. So by doing it this way and by norming it to the growth, it created a more level playing field for schools that could never reach those achievement scores, but were growing their students at crazy high rates. And so that's part of why they changed the scoring. But what was harmful to us is that it's really hard to compare last year to this year because you're basing it off of a different mathematical equation. Again. So when you look at this, and I know it's tiny, but this thing is telling you when you're taking last year's report card and this year's report card, you can't look at certain things and compare it. So though most of the data can be compared, there is some things that you can't say. If you, like, for example, took our overall score from last year and our overall score from this year, you cannot compare those two because the mathematical equation has changed. So next year they're saying that you can compare to see that growth, but for planning purposes and for continuous improvement, it literally says that the overall score should not be directly compared between last year's report card and this year's report card.
So question for you. So in math, this makes sense in my head, so let me see if I can get it out right. We take certain formulas and we plug numbers in. If the numbers change, but the formula stays the same, or if the formula changes and the numbers stay the same. So what I'm trying to get at is, can we plug the other numbers into the equation this year?
No, so this is what this page here is showing you what you can compare and what you can't compare. So for example, the information on the front page, the student information, where it talks about like your student demographics, you can compare that from last year, it's apples to apples. But when the overall score, you can't compare it because the formulas and everything, because of the norming to the growth, there were so many changes that happened, you can't compare the two. Then it talks about like your overall rating in stars, can't compare because I just showed you that the chart changed, right? Like this year it's a 60, but last year it was.
Right, which
Right.
I mean you can, you just have to
This
change it in your
this
head.
came specifically from DPI to say
Well,
don't compare.
listen, I
I
have
think
issue.
There'd be a lot of moving numbers to get it to work out. Your priority weighting area, that chart that I showed you at the beginning, that you can compare. So your priority achievement score, you cannot compare. Your students' ELA and math achievement scores, you cannot compare. You can compare the achievement performance level percentages in the charts and tables. And so we will compare with all the things that we can compare, we will. But I just need you to know if you're looking, because my instinct was take last year's and this year's and let's see where we grew. You can't do that.
Right, but you can change things, like the star rating, right? So it only increased 1. So if I took the new formula and looked at the, or not the new formula, the new number range, right? And I looked at the number from last year, based on the information we have this year, we would have been at 2 stars last year.
But again, you have to remember that even there was multiple formulas that changed, so it's not just that one. It's also the way that they calculated the growth. It's also the way, like, you would have to change a whole bunch of formulas to make it do what last year's did.
This is so frustrating.
Yes.
It's horrible. And so
Yes.
even to talk about what happened last year, take it off the table, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened last year because we're starting new. And
So
hopefully
how
they
are-
don't change it again.
They will.
How are you supposed to know if you made any growth or if you're making any growth right now in math? And I think the other subject was English, that they said you can't compare.
In achievement, but you can compare the growth. And so as we break it down in a minute, everything that we can compare, I put together to show you what we can compare, but there are just things that we can't compare because of change. So next year.
Just so you know, it's not you. I'm just frustrated
Yeah.
with the system, so
I-
just.
I just want you to understand when you're looking at the report cards that you can't just go, oh.
I want to know,
What it is.
bottom line, are our children achieving?
So we're gonna keep going. Okay, so when we look at this, again, some of the things that you can compare are these charts. And so in a little bit, this is a sample, but I'm gonna break it down so that you can see the things that we can compare, what that looks like. This is brand new, it's on the front page. We don't have any of these because all of our schools had above a 95 test participation rate. So you will not find any red exclamation points or yellow because everybody was higher than 95. So.
And that's the same from last year.
Nope, this is brand new. This is brand new, but I was like looking all over and I'm like, I don't see any of those things. We don't have any because nobody was below the 95th percentile. So that means we're doing good. That's all you need to know about that.
Okay.
For, this is brand new also. Act 20 was a big topic last year, and so one of the components, again, it is not scored, it is not part of the calculation, but on page 7 of your report card, you will find this exact box which shows our district's ELA from Act 20 and the percentage of pupils who are reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade. Right? And so our district scored 46.8% and the statewide average is 50.3. So we are a little bit underneath. And again, remember, this is laggy data. And so some of the things that came along with Act 20, it didn't start until last year. And so the results that we got are not from things that we tried. Right?
See, for me, that's what's important.
Yep.
We want to know whether the students can read, can do math. I don't care, to be honest with you, about some of those formulations when they change. They were changed for a reason. And we don't care, the state, the whatever, this is Tomah. And we should be able to measure what we're accomplishing without plugging them into this nebulous number that we can say, well, that doesn't matter, and this does, and this is weighted 80% because we have achievement. What's the achievement?
Yep, we're getting there.
Okay.
Okay. So this is our actual data, 46.8%. So we'll talk about that page in a second. So now we're going to get into our report card. So if you look at the thing that I just gave you, the front page shows you our district report card. Right? So we scored a 60.8, which is 3 stars and meets expectations. The pie is up there. Again, I already showed you how that gets calculated. And then the 4 priority areas are below. So this is our actual, the screenshot, and what you have in front of you is our current report card. So then on the second page of the document that I gave you, this is only on the district report cards. On the school report cards, you will not find this particular page because it's really an overview of all of the schools within our district and like how we get that score. So the second page is only going to show you like these are the number of schools that exceeded or met expectations, etc. We do have 2 schools that are in the alternate accountability because they are so small. So Oakdale and Robert Cooper doesn't have an actual report card. They get scored a different way, and they both met expectations. And then it shows you like school summary scores. So that's the second page. So then I broke it down so that you can see these are all of our schools. So again, other than Robert Cooper and Oakdale because they have alternate measures. But we had 4 schools that exceeded expectations. We had 1 school that met expectations, and we had 4 schools that met few expectations. And you need to note that 2 of the schools that met few expectations are super close. So 60 was the cutoff, and if you look at Weigel, it was 59.9. So it was 0.1 that we missed meeting expectations. And then the middle school was 0.7 away. So they were very, very close. And last year, again, because of the calculation, if it were apples to apples, right, it would have, that's what I was like, ooh, we would have if it would have been the same, except it's not the same, so it's really hard to compare. So then the next page is your achievement score. And so the achievement score takes, measures ELA and mathematics in grades 3 through 11, and it measures the students who took the statewide assessment and who were enrolled in the school or the district for the full academic year. And so that score is based on the 4 performance areas: developing, approaching, meeting, and advanced. And this year, 2 report cards were used to calculate that. So 2 of the last year's scores and this year's scores get squished together, and that's how we get our achievement score. So then if we look closer, our score was a 57.4. For ELA, it was a 57.7, and for math, our achievement score was 57.1 as a district. And so then that little blue chart on the side shows you that we are the same or higher than 13.9% of districts in the state for this is again for last year. So then when we take these charts, eventually report cards should have 3 of these. So next year we will have 3 graphs, but these are the percentages for us. And so you can see in 2023, and these you can compare, 42.7 we were meeting our advance, and then this year we were 43.5, so we had an increase of 0.8 in ELA. And then in mathematics last year, and when I say the 43 is meeting or advanced on scoring meeting or advanced on that forward exam. 43 was the score for math, and this year we had a 42.4, so it was a decrease in 0.6. And those are comparable. That is one thing we can compare. So then, this chart up here is not in your report card, but basically, this is the achievement scores for all of the schools in the district.
So we went down in achievement from last year to this year,
In
or
math.
in math?
In math, 0.6. So then if you look at all the schools, these are all on the chart here. These are all the schools, and then it has their ELA score and their math score. And then if you look at I broke it down so that you can see last year to this year and whether they gained points or they went down based on the two comparing each other. So you can see we had some major growth in some, we had some major takeaways in some. ELA is the first one in the 23-24, and so like, for example, LaGrange, 49.2 was ELA and 44.7 was math last year, and then this year LaGrange 49.8 is ELA and 45 is math. And you can look at each of the individual report cards and do that, but this was just so that you had like an overall view of it.
Is there any way you can send us your PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, great.
So then, like I said, Oakdale and Robert Cooper do not have a report card because they're so teeny tiny. And so instead, there is alternate ways where the state says whether they're meeting expectations. And there's only 2 categories, needs improvement or satisfactory progress. And both of the schools are in the satisfactory progress. So then the next page is growth. And growth measures the changes in performance over time compared to similar students across the state. So again, achievement is how they scored on that assessment. This is saying, how did our kids compare to the same, like if they had the same race, they're the same age, they're the same gender, they're the same, they take all those things and they compare them to each other. So your growth score is based on 3 years of weighted data, and you get more weight for the most recent year. So last year's test gets a heavier percentage than the year before and a heavier percentage than the year before that. So then what you want is there's these lines here. This line in the middle is showing you that's where you want that 1 year's growth, which I talked about to you guys in the past. Once you hit that line and you go to the right, the boxes will change and they'll turn dark blue. So you can see we're hovering the line for both of those, and our score this year is 55.6, and which is, we are the same or higher than 19.2% of schools in that area. Growth is value added, which like makes my brain hurt, right? And so students are compared using the following variables: prior test scores, economic status, race and ethnicity, disability status, gender, and English learner status. And the growth scores are calculated by reviewing the change in the students' actual test scores and comparing their results to average growth to students who are similar across the state. The thing you have to worry about is an increase in assessment scores from 1 year to the next does not necessarily mean that your growth scores are going to increase. And I'll give you an example. If a school's assessment scores have increased, but its students' test scores have increased to a lesser degree than a similar students across the state, then our growth scores would actually go down, even though our achievement scores went up. So it's this like mathematical, they're again comparing like to like across the state. Does that make sense?
So could we say that, forgot what page it was, where it was ELA was, test scores were higher?
That's achievement.
Achievement,
Yep.
but our growth isn't quite to 3, is that what you're saying, does that apply here then in this instance?
So what I'm saying is when they calculate that score, right, so even if our achievement went up, if other kids that were similar, if they grew faster than our kids, our growth score wouldn't necessarily, even though our achievement went up, our growth score wouldn't necessarily go up. So our goal is to get us to that line and to the right, like that's what we're trying to get to. So our growth score was 55.6, which is the same or higher than 19.2% of other districts. And then this is the chart where it's showing growth. I can't compare overall scores because that was one of the things that you can't compare last year to this year. So this is just showing you all the schools broken down, and then their total score, and then ELA and math score for last year's report card. So then your target group outcomes page is the next page. That's green at the top. And so the big takeaways here is this measures outcomes in achievement and growth, absenteeism, and attendance and graduation. And it takes the students in that bottom 25th percentile, and it compares them to students, your own students, right? So this particular one is showing the gaps within your own school. So it's showing the bottom 25% of students who are performing against all of the other students that are not performing. So what you want to see happen is you want to see those lines. The two charts here, like the green and the gray, is showing you this is the bottom 25th and this is everybody else in our district. So this creates your gap in achievement, right? And then this is the same here. So growth, right now, we're growing the students, we're growing students in that bottom 25th a little bit faster, but what we really want to do is we want to grow them exponentially faster, because if we can grow them faster, that achievement gap starts to close. And so that's what we're continuously working on. Right? So this particular page is our students, we're not comparing them to other students, it's literally our own students, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That's more important.
So then, this is a screenshot of ours, and so our score was 51.2, which is the same or higher than 5.6% of districts in the state. And then you can see the difference between the gray and the green, and then that creates the district-wide gap. So then this is again a chart of all of our schools. Like I told you before, if the schools are so small that the population would be able to identify who those students are, they're not going to get that score. So you'll notice Orange, Camp Douglas, Tams, and Wyville do not have a score in that area because of the breakdown, and they don't want you to identify students. But everybody else, same thing. It's math and ELA, and what those ratings kind of look like. So then you're on track to graduation. The key takeaway, this is the blue page. It measures how successfully students are achieving educational milestones. So it talks about chronic absenteeism, your graduation rate. It takes 3rd grade ELA achievement and 8th grade mathematics achievement, and that's how they come up with your score. So our score was 79.4, which is the same or higher than 8.7% of districts in the state. And you can kind of see each of the breakdowns where it shows you each of those 4 categories that I talk about that makes up that score. So then this post-secondary preparation, this one is just going to be, it'll be in our district one, but it'll also be on our high school report card. You won't find this when you're looking at individual report cards and you look at like a Lagrange, you're not going to find this page. So this page is pretty awesome because it's showing how many students are enrolled in advanced courses. So last year we had 149 students successfully complete at least one advanced placement course. Our dual enrollment, we had 505 students successfully complete at least one dual enrollment course. And if you notice, the percentages there were almost double the state. This is an area that we have been really working on, trying to provide opportunities for students to be able to get additional credits and take dual courses and get certifications and all over, and obviously it's paying off. We are well above the state average. We had 56 students earn at least one industry recognized credential, and we had 67 students who participated in a work-based learning program. So like our schools work, where we have students work for part of the day and then they come to school for the other part of the day. And so our district was above state average in the industry recognized credentials and in the dual enrollment. And then the next page is also for high school only, and it's talking about, there are 4 categories of the arts and design, dance, music, and theater. Some districts do offer theater courses and dance courses. We do not, so you'll notice that the state average is really, really tiny, like 0.4 and 1.8. And so we're at 0 because we're not able to offer some of those courses. But in art and design, we had 360 students successfully complete at least one art and design course, which is again above the state average. Our average was 38.8 and the state average is 27. And then for music, we had 196 students successfully complete at least one music course, which again is above the state average. We have 21.1% and the state average is 18.3. And then this last page is new. And again, it does not impact the score. It is just showing the data for informational purposes. And so districts had to report certain state and local law violations, and then there was a score, and then you can see the statewide score. There is information on DPI where it talks about like looking at this particular information with caution, because it'll talk about that like you had to report the data, but it doesn't mean that a charge or citation was conviction. Sometimes districts don't know if something was charged, and so they even say like the data itself is not super reliable because you only go off of what you know. And the different things that they're looking for is homicide, sexual assault, burglary, robbery, theft, battery, arson, use or possession of alcohol, controlled substance, or a controlled substance analog, and then a violation of the municipal ordinance related to disorderly conduct. So those are the categories that they were looking for, and then based on how many charges were out there, then that's where they got that percentage. So that's all I have.
I would just like to say thank you for bringing that forward. Obviously, we have some frustrations, but I'm hopeful that with what we're doing now, with the PLCs and other things, collaborative, we're going to see some results in subsequent years. Obviously, we have problems when you change the rules in the middle of the game. It's bad, but it's not under control. However, we can measure the progress with what we have in house, and that's what I think. That's what I'd like to see. You know, yes.
To me, that's more important than comparing us to Hartford. Arrowhead, Hartford. I mean, that's ridiculous that we would think to compare ourselves to them. But how we do amongst our own improvements and growth we show within our own district, not compared to anybody else, that's more important to me.
Well, even at that Hartford, regardless, we still have the potential and the capacity. So I don't see us elevating, seeing someone looking up at someone. No, we can aspire to be that. I was reading Mississippi. Mississippi was 49th and 50th. 19th. And part of the strategies, 3rd grade, you don't see 4th grade. If you can't read at 3rd grade level, you don't move on. And instead of lowering the bar, they raised the bar. And the students met those expectations. For 49th, Mississippi, 19th. That's a tremendous leap. And all I'm saying is that, this to me says, well, let's lower the bar so that we're saying that because of socioeconomic issues, that person's not capable of learning. I don't subscribe to that.
That was perfectly articulated.
Yes, exactly.
That what he just said. That's
I just wanted to make sure you didn't
But
try to
no,
raise your
it's not
report
you.
down and go, oh, look.
No, it wasn't a
worded it
Yeah,
so much
I
better than I
do have a question. Is there,
any way that you can come back to us and, show us just our district.
That is your district.
No, just our district, our kids, not compared to the rest of the state, just how is each school doing in growth, and then each school doing in achievement.
How would
And
you
show
measure
it-
that, though? Like,
And they would know it because they're giving those quarterly exams to the third graders and seeing how that's doing.
You're asking for different assessments, we have a balanced assessment, so these are our summatives, but we have our formative and, you know.
Just seeing where we are, see if we're on, I wanna know, and I don't want a whole hour presentation, just a quick snapshot, are we making the goal being over here, which is achievement and growth and shooting up like Mississippi, and are we getting them that way, or are we a
We won't be
scatter
able to do
chart over
anything to
here?
show Mississippi, because this is the
I know,
Mississippi
but-
model, but you're asking for like an AIMSweb review?
I wanna see, if you put it on a scatter chart, you have
What are you putting
Wyville,
on the scatter chart, what data?
well, you have achievement,
And what
and you have
sources are
growth.
coming from?
Growth going this way, achievement going this way, and you take, your let's say your third grade, because that's the one that you're testing a lot right now. Or second graders, or I can't remember what it is on the, Act 20. But, you stick them, each school on a scatter chart, is their score, how far are they moving in growth, and then how far are they moving up in achievement, and you put a mark.
Are you
And
talking about like assessments though, as far as like the quarterly assessments compared so like, for example, when my kids come home, they have this iReady report card thing, and in the winter, fall or whatever, and then in the spring, it
Right.
shows their growth.
If I
So are you
read
talking about like
AIMSweb,
student to student, or are
No.
you talking about like sums and averages over the year?
Okay, so not student, because you would end up seeing what the students
Huge
are.
growth and the data would be skewed, so that's what I'm saying, like, would you take the average, so like, let's say we take last year's average in the winter and compare it to this year's average in the winter?
Yeah, I wanna kinda see those right now. You
Which would
can,
still be data, it would still skew the data, but.
you can see, I don't wanna see each individual student because of privacy,
Right.
but like each school, having their data in growth and up.
we would have to find the best instruments. We'd have to take a look at that, because we're observing and working toward and measuring how are we impacting instruction to improve student learning. We're
Right,
pushing growth all
I
the
understand.
time. So we'll find and take a look at the type of tool we can use. We have iReady data, we have AIMSweb, which is your reading. Yeah, that may be something. So we'll take a look at that and see what we can bring you. But we appreciate you walking through the state report card
And I
data,
just-
which is
just wanna see
equally
one scatter
important. Very nice job.
Okay, so, question, and I don't know, maybe I should email you because you've been here so long, I'm sorry. How does our absenteeism correlate with our lowest performing 25% of students? What interventions are being put in place?
So, you mean, how does it, why is it, it's part of the
I'm saying
contract to
like,
graduation score.
right,
Yeah.
so I'm asking like, I guess the best way of putting it is, with our absenteeism rate, okay, that's in here, how are we as a district, measuring that absenteeism rate with our lowest performing 25%?
You're saying like if it has an impact
If there's-
on
if
it,
it has an
like if
impact
there's
on
an
it, what
impact of the
interventions are we-
absenteeism on a lower
On that
performance rate?
25 percentage of students that is the lowest performing in our district right now, like, do we have any interventions in place? Like, are we looking at, say the middle school has a high level of absenteeism, well, is that affecting our ELA and our math, and then what are we doing as intervention steps?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and we have,
Yeah,
and
that's
right
what
now
I'm
we're
asking.
doing the academies, which.
Yeah, we've had I have a bunch of, we're actually running a motivation academy. We've been running them since the beginning of the school year. So we're targeting, a lot of students from last year that had already shown issues with attendance. The biggest issue we're having is that the tier 2, 3 level of attendance is so grand, like we don't have enough people to teach enough motivation academies. We are seeing gains in attendance for students who are attending those academies. It's just when you do an academy, the majority is like 8 top, right? Like you have 8 students top. Well, if you look at the middle school and our attendance rates, that is, if we could have everybody teaching a motivation academy, because in motivation is attendance, but it's also like, let's not put our heads down. Let's like engage, you know what I mean? So, but yes, their attendance is directly affecting their achievement, and more so, like in our case, their growth, for sure.
Okay, so what could the Board of Education do to help you in those scenarios?
Yeah, I think the big thing is like, and I know that and I'm sorry, I'm gonna speak, sorry, come in at any point. I think we spend a lot of our time, right, like we wanna talk about a lot of things. I think we wanna talk about discipline. I think our statistics show that our bigger issue as a district is our attendance rates. We need to start honing in on our attendance rate. Sorry, this is where I get really passionate. I don't know if you can tell. But like we gotta get these kids in the building. Like we can't help and we can't meet them and we can't teach them. They can't grow and achieve without being in the building. And there's a lot of factors that we're learning in our motivation academies, that we have a lot of students who want to be at school, but their parents aren't waking up to get them to school. And you're talking about 6th graders who, yes, they're getting to that age, but they still need guidance on how to get up in the morning, right? And so they're in these academies, I want to be here, but I can't get here. So what other ways can we ensure that we can get kids here? Like, and I'm not looking at Tom because I'm sure he's looking at me right now.
I'm staring
I
at you.
know, but like, what can we do as a district, right? In those instances, we know that like X family struggles in this area. So what resources could we create? Because some of these kids aren't within bus driving, right? Like they can't, or whatever reasons. I'm not saying that's the problem of the transportation department. There's just lots of things. I think we've dug so deep into behaviors, which I think is beautiful and we needed to. I think the next area we have to really start honing in on though is attendance, and then I will stop.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, though. I mean, that's a really good question, because
I have one more though, so don't hate me. So, what strategies are being produced, and which strategies have produced measurable improvement in the last year, and how will we scale those successes across to other schools?
Well, and it's again, it's so hard. Like if you look at, I'll take Tim, right? He has 2 different buildings, same principal, same things going on, and like we are using the same resources, we're using the same strategies, and what we're finding is we have to get really clear about which students are not meeting that mark. So one of the things that I just had my assistant do is we pulled all of the students in the different schools to see which students are not meeting those areas. And then we need to be really specific and hone in and say, what can we do to help those students, right? So that might look like, one of the things we talked about at the high school was, if we have a student in like a 1 of 3 geometry, instead of doing that, is there a way where we could front load, where we could double up? And so instead you would have like, let's say you're lagging in skills, which we're finding, right? We have students that are coming to high school that don't have math or ALA skills that they need. So instead of saying, oh, we're gonna lower the rigor, nope, we're gonna keep you in algebra, but in order to help you be successful in algebra, we're gonna front load and we're gonna help build some of those skills, but it would be like a double block class. So you would be in this class first, to help learn the vocabulary, to help say, okay, we know that graphing is an issue. It's not the math at this point, but let's teach you how to graph, because if you can graph, you can do this when you get into this class. And so we're looking at different strategies, but we're digging down deep to figure out which students and which skills do they need specific help with. And that's all happening in their collaborative teams within the PLC. And this year, with all of the work that we're doing with assessments, we're really starting to dig into that data. I think for a long time, we just assumed, or we were like, yeah, they struggle with this. Okay, but what is it exactly that they struggle with? And then once we know which students are struggling and which skills they're struggling with, now we're doing little PDSA cycles, like plan, do, study, act. So if two different teachers are like, I'm gonna try this strategy, which is like a best practice strategy, and I'm gonna try this strategy, let's bring it back and let's see what were the results? Did you have better results than me? What did you do? What did that look like? We're bringing coaches in. We're having coaches like sit and model. There's so many different things that we're trying to do, but really digging deep and getting specific in where is the issue. I think sometimes we generalize and we make these assumptions and we're like, yeah, they're struggling. But who's struggling and what are they struggling with? And once we know that, then we can get tighter and we can do things like academies, and we can do things where we target those students that we want. Again, when I showed you the growth, we don't want to grow our top students and our bottom students the same, because by growing them the same, we keep the gap, right? Instead, we want to grow our bottom students at a much faster rate. But we have to know who those students are and where the gaps are, and some of it is because of attendance. And so I think it's a variety of strategies, but getting really tight on who is doing what and how can we help them, and that's what the PLC process is all about.
And why do we have it to be? Why do we have 20% of our school district in students with disabilities? Why is that the way it is around the state as well?
Our average is we have a high average.
Yeah, it seems like double the national average.
I think the normal is about 15.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
15%.
Is the average now for the United States?
We don't know that, but we are certainly working on what's happening in our school systems regarding those kind of assessments that are asked for, and done absolutely any family that asks for do the assessments. But that's something Dr. S, while he's not here tonight, is very well aware of the 600 plus students and how we're navigating through that. Because as you know, we struggle finding the specialized services for them. So how do we build all of our tier 1 intervention or tier 1 instruction? They're not interventions. You know, what are all of our students getting from the moment they're here? It's certainly, absolutely, those students that need those special services will receive those. And looking deep into that as an organization too, and making really positive changes. Students are moving into classrooms. So, a lot of things going on.
I hope we take the time to recognize like the 4 schools that had exceeding expectations, and recognize them as a school and even their parents, and have some sort of a, I don't want to say a celebration, but maybe so, because those kids will be taking those tests next year, and for them to realize how important it is and feel a sense of pride and accomplishment for that their particular school and their friends, they exceeded expectations. That's something. When a lot of schools haven't, I'm not saying any of ours, but other places. But I think they and the parents should be recognized to stress the importance of the education. And we applaud them for helping their students achieve that.
You're welcome. That's my child, my children.
My grandchildren too. So there you go.
Angie, thank you for that presentation too, and I'm sorry that you got like the brunt of our frustration. It was not directed at you, and we appreciate all the administrators. Well, I appreciate, can't think of that more, but I appreciate all you guys do for our school and all your guys' hard work.
Okay, next would be consideration and possible approval to order 2 buses for the 2026-2027 school year.
Mr. Darroz is here today, so I'll invite him to come up to the podium, because they're gonna ask a question that I don't know the answer to. And if you're asking why we're talking about this in December, it's
8 months.
It's out, so this would be coming out of next year's budget, but the spec sheet's embedded for them to see. Do you have any questions for him?
Oh, I have questions.
Jump in.
Okay, so, because ever since I've been on the board, we've been in a process of replacing buses so that we have a cycle. I understand that. Is there information, whether maintenance or whatever, that would indicate that the 3 buses that we're going to lose are in that state that we have? Because we got our buses early because we got a price on them, just the 3 that we just got. And I'm just wondering now, I mean, it's good to have the cycle, but we also have fiscal responsibilities, we're talking about some other things, to validate why we need 3. So you have maintenance records or something that these are falling into disrepair, or?
Correct. So the biggest enemy of our school buses is not necessarily time, it's corrosion. And as the buses get older, David Trowbridge, our lead mechanic, will have these records on file, and I can get some records if you'd like to see. When we start looking at the repair costs of replacing, let's say, one of the most common things to go would be the end cap. That's the rear of the bus, takes a lot of use and whatnot. If that starts to outweigh the overall value of the vehicle, that's when we start looking to replace it. Or underneath on the frame. The frame itself, brake lines, exhaust, things that take the beating the most. When it starts to cost more to replace those than the value of the bus, that's when we start looking to move them. That's the best explanation I can give you. Or in the case of one of the buses last year, it was an older vehicle, and we had injectors going out on it. To replace injectors, one injector is approximately $4,500 for parts and labor. So you start looking at 6, it starts to get pretty costly. And that's when we start to go beyond that one can go away. Just as it ages and comes close to or exceeds the 10-year cycle that we like to replace it.
Okay, that's what 10-year cycle, so that's
Yes.
what we're working with.
Yes, sir.
Is that our oldest buses are about 10 years old?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
Pretty close.
How many miles are you driving a year?
Each bus is different. If you were going to ask me to average it,
Total
I don't
for the
want to lag
district?
it. Oh, goodness.
Is it 1 million miles? Is it 2
No.
million?
No. I can get you that number, Teresa. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay,
I really don't.
thank you.
I can tell you if I had to, okay, as an example, one route, a Warren's route, if it was to leave here and come back every day, twice a day, it was 72 miles, one trip. So 140 miles a day times 173 days of school. That's just one of 40 bus routes that we have. I know that's not the number you're looking for.
No.
Because they vary in size and distance. I'll find that out. I'll send it to you.
Do we need such a large capacity bus?
I'd like to have larger buses, but we cannot because we can't fit them in our facility. We used to have 77 passenger buses. It was a front engine, but that barely fits in the shop. So we have 72 passenger buses right now. Now 72 passengers, that's 3 people to a seat. We can't do that with everyone. Once you get to about 4th grade, now you've got to, maybe even 3rd, you've got to cut it down to 2 per seat.
Are very many of the buses full to capacity when they're dropping off at school?
Correct. Yes.
Because I must see them early in the route because I don't see many heads.
It depends on where you are.
Yeah.
We have 6 routes that are in town. Those are always at or very close to capacity. And then it just depends on where they go. I will tell you that over the course of the years since I've been here, the 7 years I've been in supervision, we haven't changed what you see that we want on the bus. I think since I've been here, I've changed the interior light moving to LED lights versus just to have a better view at night when they're sweeping and cleaning and looking for students. Well, no, seriously, I take that very seriously. I don't know if you guys remember, a number of years ago, we had a driver come back and didn't check their bus, and there was a student there. So it's very important that we can see everywhere in that bus, including under the seats. You'd be surprised. Engine size, lighting, we're putting white tops on them now because it's cooler in the summertime. We do a lot of stuff in the summer, so we're trying to keep it cooler without the cost of air conditioning.
So those buses
That's
aren't
seat.
air conditioned,
Negative.
and you're gonna take them, do they ever go to Florida?
Negative. No, no. Teresa, we might go into Iowa, but it's usually the winter time. The furthest we go would be in the fall for some sports, and that's just Minnesota. Mr. Pluger, where else do we go? Minnesota, where else do we go for football? That's about it, right?
Arizona minds to come.
Yeah. We're staying in state, we usually go north.
The only reason why, my Arizona mind, we went from northern Arizona all the way down to Mazatlan, which is across another country and down, halfway down, and so in a school bus.
That would be like someone coming to Arizona and
Oh, lady,
asking
the
us if
drivers
we have
would love it.
heat.
Yeah.
The drivers would love it, but we use the, what I call the 24/60 method of air conditioning, which is 24 windows down and power down.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Alright, other,
I haven't changed much on it, so again, you have all that information embedded. What I do need to find you is what you want to, what we drive per year, so I'll find that information for you.
yes, we have to get this in, we get this in the system.
Will be next year, and is there a possibility that they may be available in June?
In talking with our sales representative, he's confident in that 8-month time frame.
If something were to happen, though, we would try to get at least one in our this year's budget in June, but it'll just be something we write into the budget.
And you have to take, you probably have to take possession, you can't prepay, obviously.
Correct. And we have, they have to, kids have to ride on it at least one day.
That is correct.
Okay, I should, there's
Safety is paramount, so.
Don't wait any longer then.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to, or do we need a motion? to
Yes, we do.
approve it? I'll
Yes,
make
we
a
do.
motion to approve it.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Katie and a second by Sue to go ahead with the purchase of the 2 buses that were presented to us tonight. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Alright, thank you, Tom.
Say, I'll have Tom stay right up there.
Yep,
No
yep.
action.
Yes, I'm sorry. You're gonna, I was just gonna read it. So the next thing is just, the last thing we have is just a review of inclement weather decision-making process and our remote learning day protocols.
So we're gonna quickly walk through on this weekend, whether hit over the weekend and not on a day, but we are gonna have those inclement weather days or any activity that may cause a disruption to the school schedule, but certainly inclement weather is the one. And we started this one out, Angelica put this together, Casputis, our communications coordinator. Tom, you wanna walk through, what does a snow day all look like?
All right, well, I start looking at weather at least a week and a half out to see what's coming because, just because. So it's all over the board, but as we get closer to the school week, it pretty much narrows down, and I'm in contact with Dr. Hanson and my counterpart, Colin McCormick, and we start talking about what nights we're gonna go out. So when we decide, unless it's really bad the night before and they're confident that it's gonna be going through the night and we call school at that point, if we're not confident or it's gonna start sometime during the night or the morning, we'll be, the National Weather Service in Monroe County, whatever, will start sending us information about what they're doing, when the clouds will be out, when they predict the snow. If it's bad enough, they give us a webinar and then we start formulating our plans. If it's gonna start during the night or in the morning, myself, Dr. Hanson, and Colin are out no later than 3 a.m. driving specific areas of the district. It's 456 square miles, so we can't cover everything, but we do know, or we have a great idea of where the most treacherous parts are. So we go out and we look at what the roads are like, if they're drifted, if it's icy, blowing, whatnot, what's projected to come. because that's gonna be important. So by 4:45, we will convene over here at transportation and we'll continue to look at the models. We also look and see what other schools are doing, just to make sure that we'll act on our own. Obviously, we wanna do what's best for our district, but we also wanna see what's going on in the area. By 5 o'clock, we like to make the call of what we're going to do, late start, cancellation. If we do a late start, we get that notification out to the media, we get it out in emails, we get it out just about anything we possibly can to let people know. Then at 6 a.m., we will go out and evaluate roads to see how they're doing. The main highways are really good. It's when we get into the county roads and the townships. That's who we're depending on to clear that stuff for our buses. And that's the other thing, all of that. If at that point we don't feel like it's safe to send out buses or have, the new, one thing I didn't think about last year, Dr. Hansen brought up, is these new drivers that are out there, the 16-year-olds that have a license for the first time. And we want them out on the roads. So at that point, we'll figure it out. If it's good to go, we'll let it go. If we think we need to cancel, we'll cancel at that point. That's for late start and then going into cancellation. Obviously, if it's bad enough and we think that things are going to be bad the first thing in the morning, we'll cancel as soon as we know.
Circle back to the late start. Let's say that happens on a Wednesday. We start a late start, still early release from the park operation. Keep rocking that. Thank you all.
All right. If we go to school and it starts to look bad, or the projection is to be bad during the course of the day and going to be even worse at the end of the day, again, we're watching all the winter models. We're looking at what's coming our way. By 10 a.m., we need to make that call if we're going to do an early release. 10 o'clock is the magic hour. So it's a lot like doing cancellation or a late start. We're out there driving, we're looking at models. I've never been such a weatherman in all my life. Anyway, I don't know what more to tell you unless you have specific questions, but by 10 o'clock we have to make that call.
Tom does a great job with our Infinite Campus notifications, so all of our parents, guardians, we need to sign up for that, checking in on their apps, direct pushes there. Colin does all the media pieces, and Tom also does all the influence. We do appreciate it, Tom. I get the easy routes at 3 a.m. They get the bus. Thank you for the tough runs.
Does this go out to all the parents, this graphic?
Yes, we have put it out. I believe we put it out.
Putting it on the website and through email, because I hear a lot of parents maybe don't understand how it works, and I think it would just be good for everyone to know that there is a lot of time and effort put into figuring out the safety for our students.
Then along with, we have 2 built-in snow days that aren't going to impact our hours, so we'll take our first 2 pure snow days. Our remote learning day will be what we would do next after that third one. So snow day, remote learning day, and that's how we'll code it. Mary School District, remote learning day, whatever date it happens to be. So I've got a few of the principals here. The high school would go with a push to their devices, their school GD accounts, etc. At the academics for that day. So remote learning day, our connections with our students, but with our high school it's a little different. It is a bit more virtual in its capacity. With our elementary schools, on our middle school this year, we'll be doing choice boards, and those have some really strong activities for engagement during these days. We don't anticipate a lot of these. In fact, if we get to 3, I'm going to come back to the school board and say, I think we need to talk about the rest of the year, and we had that about 3 years ago. We were doing a lot that year, so absolutely. Our remote learning days, we know, are not as high quality as being in the school full time, but they are a way to capture those hours, those touch points. Faculty can be engaged with students, but we do want to limit those 2 because we'd have to take a look at things that we'll we need to do at the end of the year. So, choice boards at the middle school and elementary school. Mr. Chairman, may I defer to our principals?
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, thank you very much. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
So choice boards at elementary, all of our elementary teachers and by grade level in each school, they've come up with a unified one. So at Leavenworth, we have 2 sections of K through 5th grade, so each grade level comes up with their own. I happen to have a 4th grade in front of me right here, but they have a math, a reading, a fine motor, a writing, and then a specials. So this goes home by the teachers to, with kids around January 1. Keep this at home, but then if we get to that 3rd day, I would email this out as well. I would have access to all the grade levels. So Mr. Demermuth sends out an email to all families that says we don't have school today. It goes on Facebook, those sort of things. I would send a separate one to each grade level with a copy of this remote learning plan.
Why wouldn't you just email that to the parents ahead of time as well as send it home? Because if you have any kids in your school like my kid was, anything that needed to come home never came home, never reached me, unless I went and dug through his backpack. Then maybe it might be at the bottom in a squished ball or something, and then, or it got ripped up and thrown away somewhere, or there's all sorts of things, or my dog ate it, you know.
There's an email that you deleted and it's from
Yeah.
September and now it's.
That's why I send it in the morning.
Yeah.
Email is a second job, and I get about 150 a day.
Yeah.
So I send it out in the morning, that's what I can control, and
So my thought is there any way that you can just, since you're gonna send it out on the 3rd day, why can't you send it out on the 1st day and just go bam?
teachers will take care of that. I just do it as a second safety net, that here is your day, here's your plan on that day. Teachers can communicate that at any time, whether it's through dojo, like the one that I have right here says, contact me at this number or classroom dojo. So they're taking care of that. I just do it as a safety net. Once
So are they sending it out that day, or are they waiting a few days, or
They're sending it out before the very first snow day, so they have it.
They usually come home like I assume that my first and third grader are my third and fifth grader are gonna be bringing theirs home within the next couple of weeks, and then they'll send it again on Class Dojo.
On the day of the.
So we get it. I don't know if Lemon Wire's the same, but I know Warren sends it out multiple times.
Okay.
To account for the kids that don't maybe get smushed at the bottom.
Yeah.
Dr. Hank's point earlier, that in my time, we haven't needed to do this. So it's, knock on wood, it's rare, but all the elementary principals would do this the morning of to say, just a reminder, here is what your activity is on the remote learning day. Enjoy. So.
Okay.
From a middle school perspective,
Yes.
we will not be having them take them home physically because they will never make them home. They have most of our kids don't have backpacks, right? So, but it's the same concept of like sending it out to parents. We do have like a small amount of parents who don't have email, so then we would be mailing them like a copy of whatever grade level they have their kids in, so that they have them available when they're needed. But also just like the morning of is also best for that, because that morning if we don't send it out and be proactive, like I can imagine having hundreds of parents emailing like, I don't have this, I can't find it. And that's not to their fault, it's because they get a lot of emails every day. I mean, I get a lot of emails every day too. So at the middle school, we have team time set up. We have 3 team meetings this week, and they're meeting as grade levels to create their boards. And so they'll have math, ELA, science, social studies, related arts as well. Like they'll follow their schedule basically. And so they'll go through and they'll be able to pick or choose between some things. I know related arts is like, well, can we put multiple things within our content and then keep it for 6th through 8th grade? And it's like, that's perfectly fine, because otherwise they're coming up with 9 different ideas at one time. So that also is getting finalized this week. The first snow day, their first like virtual day, is due by the end of this week. And then we actually are making different boards for each virtual. We're planning 3, but we're just being kind.
So how are elementary and junior high, and I have a different question for the high school, but how are you keeping the kids accountable to their academics? Do they have to bring that work back with them and have the teachers look at it and make sure it's been done? What's going on there? And is the junior high not on 1-to-1?
We are, except for the amount of damages on Chromebooks that we've had over the years, and the lack of students charging. We decided to have it where they turn them in every night. They have charging stations in each room. They go to their Tito time or their 9th hour class. They put them in there, and in the morning they come back to their 9th hour class. We've drastically reduced the amount of fines, the quality, and we're not dealing with nearly as much technology violations for what's being done online on our computers outside of school.
Okay.
So it's been helpful.
That answers that, thank you. And so, what are you doing to keep them accountable?
We don't require that they return those. One of the things that, when I went to school, we had worksheets and we had packets and we had that. Nothing can ever replicate what is missed in the classroom. So we view it as what it is. It's kids being engaged with some sort of activity, whether they return it or not. It's not a requirement. We do let parents know that this is an expectation that they are working on, which is why it goes to the parents' email. But there is not a collection piece at the end. There is not.
Okay, and then, so for the high school, are they doing teams or when there's snow days, meeting in a classroom team things so that the teacher can give a quick 15-minute of instruction and then they go out and they just do their homework for that class, so they're in class but doing that, or what are your high school teachers doing?
I may not have the answer that you are looking for, but I want to tell you that I like to understand that. Okay, when I talk to my colleagues about that, they did not have that system in place. But I like to see that because the other day I was talking to the admin team that how did our teacher support the students when they are out of school for a snow day? And there was no clear understanding of what I'd like to see. For example, I would like to see teachers providing directions at the beginning and then check on like every 2 or 3 times a day, set a time where we can find out if the students finished some work. So we are talking about that, and I love to learn more about what has been done in the past. So I don't have a good answer for you, but I do have a plan that I'd like to see happening.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm just gonna, because obviously last year Robert and I worked on this because we were 1-to-1 and they did take them home. And so the plan last year, not that this is your plan this year, but last year was that they would follow their schedule basically at home, and they would go into their Schoology.
Right.
And they would just follow and do whatever the teacher had for them in Schoology. So again, we're also assuming that every child has access to Wi-Fi, right, internet when they're at home, which we learned in COVID, like that's impossible to do. So last year we did not, similar to the choice board, right? Like this was the expectation, but we understand that there are kids who aren't gonna be able to access that technology. So we did, it was the same thing at high school. It wasn't, we wanted them to do it, but and I think it's important to know, like, it's an icky feeling in a way also, just to know like we can't hold that accountable. So we do our best when they come back to like review the learning and to like get them where they need to be so we can continue with our, our GDC curriculum, so.
Is that?
I have nothing.
Thank you for coming, thank you for presenting.
Thank you.
That was another item that you all asked for a little bit more explanation that we brought back. So thank you for bringing that.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.